The asteroid designated Kepler 7743b tumbled slowly through space. Just another piece of rock in a field of thousands. On its surface, what appeared to be a small metallic outcropping was actually Sergeant Marcus Thompson, perfectly still in his powered-down environmental suit. Rifle trained on the empty space where Admiral Kethver's convoy would appear. He had been in position for 6 hours. The waiting was always the hardest part. Marcus had learned that lesson in Afghanistan, refined it in Syria, and perfected it during the colony wars. A sniper's greatest enemy wasn't the target, or enemy soldiers, or even equipment failure. It was time, and the doubt that came with it. His suit's systems had been offline for the past 4 hours. The only thing keeping him alive was the air already in his suit and his own discipline. His heart rate was steady at 60 beats per minute. His breathing was controlled and shallow. To any sensor scan, he was just another piece of space debris. Through his scope, he could see the distant flashes of the Alliance fleet moving into position. Commander Vrex was leading the assault force, while Lieutenant Zara coordinated intelligence from the command ship. They would begin their attack in exactly 14 minutes. But only if Marcus failed to complete his mission. The plan was simple. Admiral Kethver's convoy would pass through this section of the asteroid field in approximately 8 minutes. The Death's Embrace would be in Marcus's sight picture for exactly 27 seconds. He would have one shot, maybe two, if he was incredibly fast and incredibly lucky, but Marcus had built his career on not needing luck. A faint vibration through the asteroid told him something was approaching. Large gravity wells created detectable tremors in smaller objects, and 17 Dominion ships qualified as a very large gravity well. Marcus remained perfectly still, letting his eyes adjust to the scope's magnification. There, a glint of light reflecting off hull plating. The convoy was early by 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Marcus made a mental note to complain to Alliance intelligence about their timing estimates. Assuming he survived the next hour, the lead ships came into view first. Destroyers running in a screening formation, their sensors sweeping constantly for threats. Behind them, the heavy cruisers bristling with weapons and defensive systems. And finally, protected in the center of the formation, the 3 dreadnoughts. The Death's Embrace was easy to identify. It was larger than the other 2, with additional armor plating that gave it an angular, predatory appearance. More importantly, it was exactly where intelligence said it would be. Following the precise course they had predicted. Marcus began his breathing cycle. 4 seconds in, hold for 4, 4 seconds out, hold for 4. His heart rate dropped to 55 beats per minute. The rifle became an extension of his body, as familiar as his own hands, range 4,347 meters and closing. The convoy was moving at exactly the speed intelligence had predicted. At their current velocity, the Death's Embrace would be in his optimal firing window in 93 seconds. Through his scope, Marcus could see the Dreadnought's command tower. It was heavily armored with small viewport windows that probably cost more than most starships. Behind one of those windows was Admiral Kethver, the man who had ordered the destruction of 17 Alliance colonies and the deaths of over 2 million civilians. 80 seconds, Marcus shifted slightly, adjusting his position by millimeters. At this range, the smallest movement would throw his shot off by meters. He had spent 3 hours finding the perfect position, and now he became part of the asteroid itself. 70 seconds. The convoy's escort fighters swept past his position, their sensors probing the asteroid field for threats. Marcus's shutdown suit registered as nothing more than metallic or deposits. The fighters moved on without slowing. 60 seconds, time to reactivate his suit systems. Marcus pressed the emergency restart sequence, and his environmental systems came online with barely a whisper. Oxygen flowed into his helmet, and the tactical display showed green across the board. He was fully operational with 55 seconds to spare. 50 seconds. The Death's Embrace was now clearly visible through his scope. Marcus could see individual weapon emplacements, communication arrays, and the distinctive command tower that housed the ship's senior officers. He centered his crosshairs on a specific section of the tower's armor plating, exactly where intelligence said Admiral Kethver's command chair would be positioned. 40 seconds. Marcus chambered one of his grandfather's special rounds, The depleted uranium core would punch through almost anything, and the shaped charge tip would ensure maximum penetration. He had practiced this exact scenario dozens of times in the cargo bay, but this was different. This bullet would either end the war's bloodiest campaign or accomplish nothing but revealing his position to an overwhelmingly superior enemy force. 30 seconds. The dreadnought was now at optimal range. 4,203 meters, traveling at 847 meters per second on a bearing of 127 degrees. Marcus made final adjustments to his aim point, accounting for the target's movement and the lack of atmospheric drift. 20 seconds. He could see details on the ship's hull now. Weapon ports, sensor arrays, even individual viewport windows. In one of those windows, a shadow moved. Admiral Kethver was exactly where he was supposed to be. 15 seconds. Marcus controlled his breathing, letting half his air out and holding it. His heart rate dropped to its minimum combat rate of 48 beats per minute. The crosshairs held steady on his aim point, moving smoothly with the target. 10 seconds. The shot had to be perfect. At this range, with this target, there would be no second chance. Miss. And the convoy would disappear into the asteroid field while every Dominion ship in the area converged on his position. 5 seconds. Marcus took up the slack in his trigger. The rifle was an extension of his will now, a precision instrument guided by 35 years of experience and thousands of hours of practice. Everything he had learned, every shot he had made, every target he had eliminated, had led to this moment. 3 seconds. The Admiral's shadow was clearly visible in the command tower viewport. Marcus could even see other figures around him, probably senior staff officers planning the next phase of their offensive. They felt safe behind their armor plating and energy shields, protected by the most powerful warship in the Dominion fleet. 2 seconds. Marcus squeezed the trigger with the same gentle pressure he had used to crush flower petals as a child. The rifle fired with a sharp crack that seemed impossibly loud in the vacuum of space. 1 second. The bullet traveled the 4,203 meters to its target in exactly 4.97 seconds, following a perfect ballistic arc that existed only in Marcus's mind until the moment he made it real. The depleted uranium core struck the Death's Embrace's command tower at 847 meters per second, punching through the outer armor plating like tissue paper. The shaped charge tip detonated microseconds later, creating a focused explosion that burrowed through 2 more armor layers before reaching the command center itself. Admiral Kethver was in the middle of explaining his next tactical move to his staff when the bullet arrived. He never felt the impact. Marcus watched through his scope as the command tower went dark. Emergency lighting flickered on, then died again as secondary explosions rippled through the dreadnought's superstructure. The massive ship began to list to one side as its navigation systems failed, but that wasn't the end of it. Without Admiral Kethver as command authority, the convoy's coordination collapsed immediately. Ship captains began issuing conflicting orders, trying to determine who was now in command. The tight formation dissolved into chaos as vessels maneuvered to avoid collision while attempting to protect the damaged flagship. That was when Commander Vrex launched his attack. The Alliance fleet, which had been waiting for Marcus's signal, erupted from concealment among the asteroids. Instead of facing a coordinated defense led by the Dominion's most brilliant tactical mind, they found a confused enemy force with no clear chain of command. The battle was over in 18 minutes. Marcus remained in position long enough to confirm the destruction of all 3 dreadnoughts and the capture of 6 heavy cruisers. Only 4 ships from the original convoy escaped, and they fled in complete disarray. When the Alliance recovery team reached his asteroid 2 hours later, they found Marcus calmly cleaning his rifle while monitoring battle communications. Sergeant Thompson, Lieutenant Zara's voice crackled through his comm system. Mission status report. 1 shot, 1 kill, ma'am. Target eliminated as requested. Copy that. Outstanding work. We're tracking massive disruption in Dominion communications across this entire sector. It appears Admiral Kethver was coordinating more than just this convoy. Marcus nodded as he packed his equipment. That's what happens when you build your entire command structure around one person. Take out the center, and the whole thing falls apart. Commander Vrex's voice joined the conversation. Human ... Marcus, I owe you an apology. And perhaps a debt that cannot be repaid. No debt, Commander. We're all fighting the same war. How did you know? How did you know that single shot would have such consequences? Marcus secured his rifle and prepared for extraction. I didn't know for certain, but experience taught me that if you want to kill a snake, you cut off its head. The Dominion's strength has always been their coordination and tactical superiority. Remove the armory of the Galactic Unity hummed with activity as Marcus carefully cleaned his rifle. The weapon was over 40 years old, a modified M24 SWS that had been his grandfather's before him. Every part had been hand-fitted, adjusted, and readjusted over decades of use. The stock bore small notches that Marcus never talked about, and the scope had been replaced 3 times. But the barrel and action were original. Lieutenant Zara watched from across the workbench as Marcus disassembled the bolt for the 3rd time that morning. Sergeant, the mission briefing starts in an hour. Shouldn't you be preparing? I am preparing, Marcus replied without looking up. He held the bolt up to the light, examining every surface for imperfections. This rifle is older than most of the crew on this ship. It's killed enemy soldiers on 6 different continents and in 4 different star systems. But if I don't maintain it properly, it becomes just an expensive club. The mission parameters have changed, she said, consulting her datapad. Admiral Kethver's convoy will be passing through an asteroid field in the Kepler system. The Alliance fleet will engage them there. The asteroids will provide cover for our approach, but they'll also limit firing angles. Marcus nodded, reassembling the bolt with practiced efficiency. How many ships in the convoy? 17. 3 dreadnoughts, 8 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, plus fighter escorts and support vessels. The Admiral's ship is the Death's Embrace, a modified dreadnought, with triple-layered shields and armor plating that can withstand direct hits from ship-mounted plasma cannons. And where exactly am I supposed to set up for this shot? Zara activated a holographic display above the workbench. The asteroid field appeared in miniature, with ship positions marked in different colors. Intelligence suggests the convoy will take this route through the field. It's the safest passage for ships that size. If you could position yourself on this asteroid here, she pointed to a large, irregular rock, you'd have a clear line of sight to the convoy's path. Marcus studied the display, mentally calculating distances and angles. Range to target? Approximately 4,200 meters at closest approach. The rifle stopped moving in Marcus's hands. 4,000 meters? In vacuum? Is that a problem? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his kit bag and pulled out a small notebook, its pages yellow with age. He flipped through dozens of pages filled with handwritten calculations, wind charts, and ballistic tables. My longest confirmed kill was 3,147 meters in atmosphere, but that was with atmospheric resistance slowing the bullet down. In vacuum. He started scribbling calculations on a fresh page. No air resistance means the bullet maintains velocity. No wind means predictable trajectory. But also no atmosphere means no way to judge distance by heat shimmer or atmospheric distortion. Our sensors can provide exact range measurements, Zara offered. Electronic sensors can be detected. The Dominion will be scanning for any energy emissions. If they pick up an active sensor painting their admiral's ship, they'll know someone is targeting them. Then how do you determine range? Marcus smiled. The old-fashioned way. Mathematics and eyeball estimation. He pointed to the holographic display. What's the length of that dreadnought? 2,847 meters from bow to stern. Marcus made more notes. And the height? 387 meters from keel to superstructure. Perfect. I can use the ship's dimensions to calculate exact range through the scope's mil dots. It's a technique we call ranging by known size, If I know how big something is, I can determine how far away it is by how big it looks through my scope. Commander Vrex entered the armory, his massive frame filling the doorway. He had been assigned as the mission's military advisor, much to his vocal displeasure. Human, I have reviewed your proposed firing position. It is tactically unsound. How so? Marcus asked, not looking up from his calculations. The asteroid you plan to use is too exposed. Dominion sensors will detect your presence long before their convoy arrives. You will be vaporized by ship-mounted weapons before you can take your shot. Will I? Marcus finished reassembling his rifle and held it up for inspection. What exactly will they detect? Heat signature, electromagnetic emissions, metal composition scans. Standard detection protocols. And what if there are no heat emissions? What if there are no electromagnetic signals? What if the metal composition scan shows nothing but iron, nickel, and rock? Vrex crossed his forearms. Impossible. All life support systems generate heat and electromagnetic fields. Your weapon's electronics will be detectable. Marcus popped open a small compartment on his rifle stock, revealing a simple mechanical sight. What electronics? Your scope ... Mechanical. No power source, no electronics. Just precisely ground lenses and metal, your life support. Won't be running. I can hold my breath for 6 minutes in a combat situation. The shot will take maybe 3 seconds. Lieutenant Zara leaned forward. Wait, you're planning to shut down your suit's life support? The suit, the rifle, everything. I'll be just another piece of floating debris until the moment I take the shot. That's incredibly dangerous, Vrex protested. If something goes wrong, if the target changes course, if you miss your window, you could die from vacuum exposure. Marcus shrugged. Dangerous is part of the job description. Besides, the vacuum won't kill me immediately. I'll have maybe 15 minutes before permanent damage sets in. That's more than enough time to reactivate my suit. And if your equipment malfunctions while it's shut down, then I die. But the mission is more important than one soldier. The three of them stood in silence for a moment. Finally, Zara spoke up. There's something else. Intelligence has identified Admiral Kethfer's location on the ship. He'll be in the command center, which is heavily armored and shielded. Even if your bullet can penetrate the outer hull, it might not be able to reach him. Marcus opened his ammunition box and pulled out a single cartridge. Unlike the standard brass cases around it, this one was matte black with strange markings etched into the metal. What is that? Vrex asked. Depleted uranium core, tungsten penetrator with a shaped charge tip. Designed to punch through tank armor and keep going. My grandfather brought these back from Earth when he joined the Alliance military. They don't make ammunition like this anymore. How many do you have? 6 rounds. I've been saving them for something special. Zara examined the cartridge more closely. Will it be enough to penetrate a dreadnought's armor? I don't know, Marcus admitted. But it's the best I've got. On Earth, we have another saying, you go to war with the army you have. Not the army you want? The convoy will only be in your firing window for approximately 30 seconds, Vrex pointed out. If you miss ... I don't miss. Everyone misses sometimes. Not at 3,500 meters. Marcus's voice was quiet but absolutely certain. I've made shots like this before, just not in vacuum. The physics are actually simpler without atmosphere. But you've never made a shot that could change the course of an entire war? Zara said softly. Marcus looked at her, then at Vrex, then back at his rifle. Ma'am, every shot changes something. Sometimes it changes who lives and who dies. Sometimes it changes which side controls a piece of ground. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very good, it changes everything. He stood up and slung the rifle across his back. I need to run some tests. Find me a firing range where I can shoot at long distance in vacuum conditions. There's a cargo bay that can be evacuated, Zara suggested. We could set up targets at various ranges. Good, I also need to practice shutting down my suit systems and reactivating them quickly. And I need to study everything our intelligence has on that dreadnought. Armor thickness, structural weak points, internal layout. The intelligence reports are classified, Rex said. Then declassify them. If I'm going to kill their admiral, I need to know exactly where he is and exactly how to reach him. As they left the armory, Zara fell into step beside Marcus. Sergeant, can I ask you something? Yes, ma'am. Why are you so confident? I've seen the tactical analysis. Even under ideal conditions, this shot has maybe a 30% probability of success. Most snipers wouldn't even attempt it. Marcus was quiet for several steps. Lieutenant, when I was 19 years old, I was in a place called Fallujah. My spotter and I were tasked with eliminating a high-value target who was coordinating insurgent attacks against our forces. The target was smart, careful, only showed himself for seconds at a time. Did you get him? Eventually. But it took 3 days of waiting. 3 days lying in the same position in 120-degree heat, with enemy patrols passing within 50 meters of our hide site. On the third day he made a mistake. Showed himself for maybe 2 seconds to give orders to his men. And you took the shot? I took the shot. 1,247 meters, with a crosswind and heat shimmer that made the target look like it was underwater. But I knew that if I missed, a lot of good soldiers were going to die. So I didn't miss. They reached the cargo bay, where technicians were already setting up targets at various distances. Marcus began unloading his equipment. The thing about being a sniper, he continued, is that you're always taking the hardest shot. The target everyone said was impossible. The angle that can't be done. The range that's too far. Because if it was easy, they wouldn't need a sniper. He looked up at the massive cargo bay, already calculating trajectories. The mess hall of the starship Galactic Unity buzzed with the usual chatter of a dozen different species. Krillian warriors with their forearms gestured wildly as they recounted battle stories. Zephyrian pilots, their translucent blue skin shimmering under the artificial lights, compared flight maneuvers. In the corner, a group of Vexian heavy infantry soldiers played a card game that involved more claws and teeth than any human would be comfortable with. Don, Sergeant Marcus Oldiron. Thompson walked in. The conversation didn't stop, but it changed. Whispers followed the aging human as he moved through the serving line. His gray hair was cropped military short, and deep lines marked his weathered face. He moved with the careful precision of someone whose joints had seen too many years and too many wars. The plasma rifle slung across his back looked ancient compared to the sleek energy weapons the other soldiers carried. "Look at what Earth sent us," laughed Commander Vrex. A massive Krillian whose purple skin bore the ritual scars of 100 victories. They send their grandfather to fight in a galactic war. The comment drew chuckles from nearby aliens. Marcus ignored them, finding an empty table in the corner. He ate his meal in silence, occasionally glancing at the tactical displays, showing the current state of the war against the Dominion. The Dominion was winning. They had been winning for 3 years now, ever since they launched their surprise attack on the outer colonies. Their technology was superior, their numbers overwhelming, and their strategy ruthless. World after world fell to their advance. And the Galactic Alliance was running out of options. Lieutenant Zara, a young vegan officer with silver skin and large black eyes, approached Marcus's table. "Sergeant Thompson? I'm your liaison officer. Welcome aboard the Galactic Unity." Marcus nodded politely. "Ma'am, where do you need me?" "Actually, there's been some discussion about your assignment," she said, sitting down across from him. "Your file says you're a sniper specialist, but our weapons experts have reviewed your equipment. They're concerned about the effectiveness of kinetic projectile weapons against modern Dominion armor." "My rifle has worked fine for 35 years, Marcus said quietly. "Against human opponents, perhaps. But Dominion soldiers wear adaptive armor that can deflect most projectile weapons. Their personal shields can stop anything below a Class 7 energy discharge. We use plasma rifles because they're the only weapons that can penetrate their defenses consistently." Marcus took another bite of his meal. "What are you suggesting, ma'am?" "Command thinks you might be better suited for logistics support. Your experience could be valuable in training younger soldiers, organizing supply lines, that sort of thing." The conversation at nearby tables had quieted. Marcus could feel eyes on him, waiting to see how the old human would react to being benched. "I appreciate the concern," he said finally, "but I didn't come here to count ammunition. I came to fight." Commander Rex stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow over Marcus's table. "Human, you are brave but foolish. This is not your small world conflicts anymore. This is modern warfare. Your primitive weapon cannot even scratch Dominion armor." "Have you tested that theory?" Marcus asked, not looking up from his meal. "I do not need to test the obvious. Kinetic weapons are obsolete. In my 3 centuries of fighting, I have never seen a projectile weapon that could match modern energy systems." Marcus finished eating and stood up. He was considerably shorter than the alien commander but showed no intimidation. "Commander, with respect, you haven't been fighting humans for 3 centuries. What makes humans so special?" Rex demanded. "You are weak, slow, your technology is primitive. Your planet only joined the Alliance 5 years ago. You know nothing of real war." The mess hall had gone completely quiet now. Even the Dexians had stopped their card game to watch. "You're right about most of that," Marcus said. "We are weaker and slower than most species here. Our technology is primitive by galactic standards. But we've been at war with each other for thousands of years. We've had to learn to fight smarter, not harder. Fighting among primitives is not the same as facing the Dominion," Rex scoffed. "Maybe not. But on my primitive planet, a good sniper can change the outcome of an entire battle with one shot. Has anyone here tried that approach against the Dominion?" Lieutenant Zara shifted uncomfortably. "The Dominion uses advanced detection systems. Their commanders are heavily protected. Long-range assassination is considered impossible against their forces." "Considered by who?" "By people who've never been snipers, or by people who've only tried it with energy weapons that show up on every sensor array in the galaxy. Kinetic weapons still create a muzzle flash, still generate heat signatures," Commander Vrex said dismissively. "Do they?" Marcus asked. "Have you ever actually used one?" The alien commander's 4 arms crossed in annoyance. "I do not waste my time with obsolete technology." "Then how can you be sure they won't work?" "Because the Dominion has ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years before they started this war. Their armor and shields are designed to stop every known weapon type." "Every known energy weapon type," Marcus corrected. "When was the last time anyone shot at them with a piece of metal moving at 3 kilometers per second?" Lieutenant Zara looked thoughtful. "Actually, our intelligence reports don't mention any kinetic weapon tests against Dominion forces. Most Alliance species abandoned projectile weapons centuries ago." "Because energy weapons are superior in every way," Vrex insisted, "are they?" Marcus picked up his rifle from where it leaned against the wall. The weapon was clearly old but meticulously maintained. Its scope was scratched, but the glass was crystal clear. "This rifle fires a 7.62 millimeter round at 850 meters per second. The bullet weighs 175 grains and can penetrate 20 millimeters of steel at 500 meters. It makes no electromagnetic signature, produces minimal heat, and the muzzle flash can be completely suppressed." "It is still primitive," Vrex said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "Maybe, but primitive doesn't mean ineffective. On Earth we have a saying, if it's stupid and it works, it isn't stupid," a Zephyrian pilot at a nearby table spoke up. "But surely modern armor can stop such weapons?" "Probably," Marcus admitted, "but not in the right places. Armor has joints, seals, vision ports. A plasma blast might not be precise enough to hit those weak points, but a bullet is." "The Dominion uses energy shields," Lieutenant Zara pointed out. "Energy shields designed to deflect energy weapons. Has anyone tested how they react to solid projectiles?" The silence that followed was telling. Finally, Vrex spoke again, his tone less mocking but still skeptical. "Even if your weapon could somehow damage Dominion soldiers, you would need to get close enough for an effective shot. Our intelligence says their detection systems can spot any threat at ranges exceeding standard energy weapon effectiveness." "How far can your plasma rifles reach effectively?" Marcus asked. About 800 meters in atmosphere, 1200 in vacuum. Zara answered. Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the mess hall. My personal best confirmed kill was at 2,847 meters. That was in Afghanistan, where the air was thin and the wind was tricky. I've made shots at over 2,000 meters more times than I can count. Impossible, breathed the Vexian soldier. No weapon can be accurate at such ranges. Energy weapons can't, Marcus agreed. Too much beam dispersion, too much atmospheric interference. But a bullet follows a predictable ballistic trajectory. If you know the range, wind speed, humidity, temperature, and a dozen other factors, you can calculate exactly where that bullet will go. You would need computer assistance for such calculations, Vrex said. Marcus tapped his temple. I've been doing the math in my head for 35 years. Computers are helpful, but they can malfunction or be detected. Your brain doesn't show up on any sensor. Lieutenant Zara was making notes on her datapad. Sergeant, what's the longest range shot you've ever attempted? Attempted or made? Marcus asked. Made. 3,147 meters. Taliban commander in the Hindu Kush. Took me 6 hours to get into position, 4 hours to wait for the wind to settle, and 2 minutes to take the shot. War in that sector was over within a week. The mess hall remained silent. Finally, Commander Vrex spoke again, his tone more respectful, but still doubtful. Human, I do not mean to insult your abilities, but the Dominion is not the Taliban. Their leaders do not expose themselves to long-range fire. They travel in heavily armored vehicles, surrounded by troops, protected by energy shields and detection grids. That's what makes them feel safe, Marcus said. And that's what makes them vulnerable. Overconfidence is a sniper's best friend. But how would you even get close enough? How would you find a target worth taking such a risk? Marcus shouldered his rifle and headed toward the door. Commander, the thing about being underestimated is that people stop watching you carefully. They assume you're not a threat? That assumption has cost more military leaders their lives than any superweapon ever built. As he reached the door, he paused and looked back. I didn't come here to prove anything to you. I came here to kill the people who are trying to destroy everything we've built. Whether you believe in my methods or not doesn't change what needs to be done. After he left, the mess hall remained quiet for several long minutes. Finally, Lieutenant Zara stood up and hurried after him. Sergeant Thompson, wait! He turned in the asterisk.